Throughout our history, hundreds of civilizations have risen and fallen. Some have met a slow demise, others were wiped out by natural disasters or invasions. But there are a few societies that disappeared without any clear explanation. From an extremely technologically advanced civilization to ancient cultures with baffling traditions, let's look at 15 incredible civilizations that disappeared. And trust us, you'll wish some of these were still around today. Let's start off with number 15, the Olmec. Before the Aztecs and Maya, the Olmecs were the OG civilization of Mesoamerica. Around 1400 BC, they established their first major city, San Lorenzo, with two other hubs, Tenochtitlan and Potrero Nuevo, acting as support centers. They built ceremonial courts, massive pyramids, and those giant stone heads, each weighing several tons. How do they move them without wheels? That's a mystery right up there with why people still use fax machines. Trade was their lifeline, connecting different Mesoamerican cultures through networks dealing in jade, rubber, and cacao. Their influence was so massive that later civilizations borrowed everything from their religion to their art and urban planning. The Olmecs were, in many ways, the blueprint for every great civilization that followed in the region. But by 400 BC, their cities were mysteriously abandoned. Some blame volcanic activity, others say climate shifts forced them out. There's even a theory that they were invaded, but if that's true, we have no idea who the culprits were. Number 14, the Harappans of the Indus Valley Civilization. The Harappans, also known as the Indus Valley Civilization, were among the largest and most advanced ancient civilizations. Their cities, spread across modern-day India, Pakistan, and Afghanistan, covered nearly 400,000 square miles, making them one of the most influential cultures of their time. Their urban planning included advanced sewage systems, well-planned streets, and organized agriculture, putting them centuries ahead of many contemporaries. At their peak, they accounted for nearly 10% of the world's population. By 1800 BC, people started leaving their cities. For years, historians believed an Aryan invasion forced them out, but newer research disproves that theory. Instead, shifting monsoon cycles and environmental changes likely dried up riverbanks, making agriculture unsustainable. Some evidence suggests earthquakes or floods could have further devastated their settlements. Over time, their cities were abandoned, and their civilization gradually faded, leaving behind mysterious ruins and an undeciphered script that still puzzles archaeologists. Number 13, Thonis, Egypt. For centuries, Thonis was thought to be nothing more than a legend, an Egyptian city swallowed by the sea, lost to time. In the early 2000s, archaeologists finally found it, buried beneath the waters of Abu Qir Bay. The discovery revealed temples, statues, pottery, and even gold coins, proving Thonis was once a thriving trade hub. Founded nearly 2,700 years ago, Thonis, also called Thonis-Heracleion, controlled maritime trade into Egypt, acting as the gateway for goods flowing in from Greece and beyond. Its wealth and influence made it one of the most important cities of the Mediterranean. A series of natural disasters eventually led to its downfall. Tsunamis, earthquakes, and rising sea levels gradually weakened its foundations. Over time, entire structures collapsed into the water, and by the 8th century AD, Thonis had completely disappeared beneath the sea, where it remains today, a perfectly preserved underwater city. Number 12, Catalhoyuk. Catalhoyuk, located in modern-day Turkey, was one of the world's earliest urban settlements, dating back nearly 8,000 years. Unlike later cities, it had no streets. Homes were built so closely together that people moved across rooftops rather than walking on roads. Instead of cemeteries, the dead were buried beneath their homes, possibly to keep ancestors close or for religious reasons. The people of Catalhoyuk practiced farming, hunting, and trade, making it a thriving center of early civilization. The city had intricate murals and figurines, suggesting a deep spiritual and artistic culture. At some point, the settlement was abandoned. Some theories suggest disease outbreaks, resource depletion, or internal conflict may have led to their decline. Unlike other civilizations that collapsed dramatically, Catalhoyuk simply faded away, leaving behind a wealth of archaeological evidence that provides rare insight into how some of the first cities in history functioned. Number 11. The Anasazi. The Anasazi, or ancestral Puebloans, emerged around 1200 BC in the Four Corners region of the United States. Early on, they lived in pit houses, but by the Pueblo II and III periods, they began carving entire cities into cliffs, like those found in Mesa Verde and Bandelier, or building massive stone structures like Chaco Canyon. These cities were connected by hundreds of miles of roads, showing an advanced and organized society. By 1300 AD, the Anasazi abandoned their settlements. Many scholars believe a combination of poor farming techniques, deforestation, and a long-term drought made it impossible to sustain their growing population. More recent research suggests social and political instability, including violent conflicts, may have also played a role. Rather than disappearing entirely, they migrated, with many resettling along the Rio Grande and the Hopi Mesas. Today, the Pueblo tribes, including the Hopi and Zuni, are considered their descendants, keeping elements of Anasazi culture alive. Number 10. The Aksumite Empire. Rising in the 1st AD in what is now Ethiopia, this empire was an ancient USA. It controlled major trade routes, dealing in gold, ivory, and agricultural goods across the Roman Empire, India, and beyond. With wealth came influence, and Aksum was the first African civilization to mint its own coins, which was the ancient equivalent of having a national credit card. Their most famous landmarks were the stelae, massive stone obelisks that served as grave markers for royalty. Legends claim Aksum was also home to the Queen of Sheba and the Ark of the Covenant, though good luck getting proof of that. Originally, they worshipped multiple gods, but in 324 AD, King Ezana II converted to Christianity, making Aksum one of the first major Christian empires. By the 10th century, Aksum had lost its dominance. Some blame a Jewish queen named Yodit for torching its cities, while others point to climate shifts, deforestation, and trade isolation as slow killers of the once mighty empire. Its legacy, however, still shapes modern Ethiopia today. Number 9. The Nabataeans. If you've seen Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, you've already seen Petra, the most famous legacy of the Nabataeans. These legendary traders and architects popped up around 600 BC, settling in Jordan, Canaan, and Arabia. They didn't just survive in the desert, they thrived, controlling major trade routes and dealing in silk, spices, perfumes, sugar, incense, and precious metals. If it was exotic and expensive, the Nabataeans probably had a hand in it. Their capital, Petra, was carved into the cliffs, a flex of architectural genius that still stuns people today. Unlike most societies of their time, they didn't rely on slavery, making them a rare case in ancient history. Thanks to their trade connections, their culture was a unique blend of Greek, Roman, Arabian, and Assyrian influences. By the 4th century AD, Petra was abandoned. There were no signs of war or destruction, meaning they left on their own terms. The most logical reason? Trade routes shifted north, cutting off their economy and forcing them to move elsewhere. Number 8. Rapa Nui. The Rapa Nui people are best known for their massive stone statues, the moai, which still stand as silent reminders of their lost civilization. But how they carved, transported, and erected these colossal figures without modern technology remains one of history's great mysteries. Easter Island is one of the most remote places on Earth, located 2,200 miles from the Chilean mainland. The Polynesians who settled there developed a complex society, but their reliance on limited resources led to disaster. Deforestation, soil depletion, and overhunting put immense pressure on their fragile ecosystem. Some theories suggest rats introduced by early settlers may have destroyed tree populations, making it impossible to build canoes for fishing. By the time Europeans arrived in the 1700s, the population had dwindled. Some believe the Rapa Nui fled to another island, while others say disease, famine, and internal conflict caused their collapse. Their descendants still live in Chile today, keeping part of their culture alive. Number 7. Tiwanaku. Near Lake Titicaca, at an altitude of 12,500 feet, the Tiwanaku civilization thrived in one of the most extreme environments on Earth. They mastered raised field agriculture, creating an advanced farming system that allowed them to sustain large populations despite harsh conditions. Their architectural precision is still baffling. Massive stone blocks fit together so perfectly that not even a credit card could slide between them, all without metal tools. Tiwanaku was a center of trade, religion, and culture in the Andes, influencing later civilizations like the Inca. Their urban design included massive temples, monolithic gateways, and an intricate canal system. By 1000 CE, Tiwanaku collapsed. A prolonged drought likely crippled their farming systems, leading to food shortages and internal unrest. Some suggest that political fragmentation and external pressures weakened them further. Though their cities fell into ruin, their influence shaped Andean societies for centuries after their decline. Number 6. Xiongnu. The Xiongnu were China's greatest threat, ruling a vast empire across the Eurasian steppe. They perfected cavalry warfare and composite bows, revolutionizing mounted combat and influencing later nomadic empires like the Mongols. Their ability to strike swiftly and retreat made them almost impossible to defeat, forcing Han China to build and expand the Great Wall as a defensive measure. The Xiongnu Empire was politically complex, held together by a confederation of tribes under a supreme leader, the Xiongnu. They controlled trade routes and extracted tribute from the Chinese, securing immense wealth and power. By the 1st century CE, their dominance faded. Internal power struggles, changing climate patterns, and pressure from Han China and rival steppe groups gradually fractured their empire. Some assimilated into Chinese society, while others migrated west, possibly contributing to the formation of later nomadic groups like the Huns. Number 5. The Mycenaeans. Long before Athens and Sparta made Greece famous, the Mycenaeans were running the show. Rising around 1600 BC, they spread across southern Greece, the Aegean Islands, and Crete, leaving their mark on history through myths like King Agamemnon and the Trojan War. They weren't just warriors, they were master traders and builders, constructing massive citadels and dominating the Mediterranean through naval power. Because their homeland wasn't rich in natural resources, they imported raw materials and crafted luxury goods, making them famous for their jewelry, weapons, and pottery. By 1100 BC, they were gone. Theories range from civil wars and economic collapse to massive earthquakes. But the best ones say they were invaded by the Dorians or the mysterious sea peoples, nomadic raiders who had a habit of showing up and wrecking civilizations. Well, we don't believe in that type of thing, but anything can be possible. Number 4. The Cucuteni-Trypillian culture. Between 5,500 and 2,750 BC, the Cucuteni-Trypillian culture thrived in what is now Romania, Ukraine, and Moldova. Their settlements were some of the largest Neolithic communities in Europe, with some housing up to 15,000 people. They built densely packed villages, cultivated the land, and produced elaborate pottery, textiles, and tools. One of their strangest customs was burning down their entire village every 60 to 80 years, only to rebuild it on top of the old one. Scholars still debate whether this was a religious ritual, a method of renewal, or something else entirely. Their society was matriarchal, with women handling agriculture and pottery, while men focused on hunting and animal husbandry. By 2750 BC, they vanished. Theories suggest they were conquered by the Kurgans, a warlike steppe people, or that severe climate change led to one of the worst droughts in European history, making survival impossible. All right, now, let's move to number 3, the Khmer Empire. The Khmer Empire rose in the 9th century AD, becoming one of the most powerful civilizations in Southeast Asia. At its height, it controlled modern-day Cambodia, Thailand, Laos, and Vietnam. The empire is best known for Angkor, an advanced city filled with intricate temples, including the world-famous Angkor Wat. The Khmers built a vast irrigation system that allowed them to sustain large populations and grow wealthy through rice farming and trade. They were also formidable warriors, frequently clashing with neighboring kingdoms like the Chams and Annamese. The empire's culture blended Hinduism and Buddhism, shifting religious affiliations over the centuries. By the 15th century, the empire declined. Some historians believe Theravada Buddhism weakened the traditional monarchy, leading to political instability. Others argue that deforestation, soil depletion, and overexpansion caused a collapse in resources. Their vast network of roads may have also made it easier for invaders, like the Ayutthaya kingdom, to conquer Angkor. Number 2, the Clovis people. The Clovis culture is one of the earliest known civilizations in North America. Their signature Clovis points, finely crafted spearheads, were used for hunting mammoths, bison, and other large game. Archaeological evidence suggests they migrated from Siberia to Alaska via the Beringia land bridge, then spread across the continent. They lived as nomadic hunters, adapting to changing environments and leaving behind distinctive stone tools. Their survival depended on big game hunting, but as megafauna populations declined, their way of life became increasingly difficult. Around 9000 BC, the Clovis culture disappeared. Some theories suggest they adapted and merged into other indigenous groups. Others argue that overhunting led to the extinction of mammoths and other key species, cutting off their food supply. A more dramatic theory says that a comet impact near the Great Lakes triggered environmental devastation, accelerating their decline. Number 1, the Minoans. From 3000 to 1000 BC, the Minoans dominated Crete, creating one of Europe's earliest advanced societies. Their cities, including Knossos, featured complex architecture, plumbing systems, and colorful frescoes. Unlike many civilizations of the time, they focused on trade rather than military conquest, forming commercial ties with Egypt, Mesopotamia, and Greece. Their written language, Linear A, remains undeciphered, but their records indicate a highly organized society centered around commerce, religion, and art. Many aspects of Greek mythology, including the legend of King Minos and the Minotaur, are believed to have originated from Minoan culture. By 1600 BC, disaster struck. A massive volcanic eruption on Thera, Santorini, likely caused tsunamis and environmental damage that weakened their civilization. While they survived the immediate effects, their economy and navy were crippled. Some believe the Mycenaeans later invaded, absorbing the remnants of Minoan society into their own. If you have enjoyed this video, like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you soon.